Senior Podcast Show. I'm your host, Kori Lehr. I'm the Director of Communications with the Senior Companies. Today, we're switching things up a little bit, and I got a couple of guests with me. I'm so happy to have you here. Marian from Marian Grout Real Estate with Dobi, and I have Leslie here. She is from the Mobile Notary of Macomb. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So you guys are second timers here, so you sort of know how we roll, but what you do together, your services separately, but they also cross over. So I thought it would be really interesting to have you both on to sort of talk about what things you're seeing on either side of the spectrum. We've had a lot of talk behind the scenes. I've learned a lot already, but I'm happy for you both to be here. So again, welcome.
Thank you.
So you were first on a couple of months ago, and we talked about some different trends in the market and, you know, what different things that they were predicting with how things are going in the real estate market. Do you think that what was predicted back then is coming true?
What was predicted by me is coming true. What was predicted by...
Because what do they say? I manifest my future.
Yeah. Well, and they talk about, you know, like the market was going to crash or, you know, there was...
It's going to slow way down.
Yeah. And prices were going to come down, and we're not seeing that at all. So if anything, the market here is very strong. Mm-hmm. We are still having multiple offers. We are still, you know, interest rates are now at around 6.5%, which actually have come down. The last quarter of 2022 was slower. Mm-hmm. And January, though, it picked right back up. And it's been insane as far as the market is concerned. So, yeah, we're busy. And you know, I'm so grateful. So.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think sometimes in the seniors who are considering selling, we're like, oh, maybe it's not a good time. But I still think that if a senior is out there trying to sell that last home and get out of it, I think there's still a competitive market from what you've been saying.
There is. It's still competitive. And of course, there are houses that are still sitting out there, and then some that have been on for a while. And what happens, again, it's all on location, price, condition. So that will always remain no matter what the market is, right?
Course.
So it all depends on price. There's sellers out there right now that are overpricing their homes, and they're sitting there. Mm-hmm. But they've heard how crazy the market is, so they think, well, we can still get it on that. We can still get it. But I'm very careful when I'm pricing homes. I'm not pricing it like the one I just sold this past weekend. There was one that sold for $50,000 over asking price, but it's like, am I really going to price the next house based on that?
Right.
No, because that was probably one buyer that was like, I want this house and that's what I'm going to pay for it. You know, then, you know, most people can't do that.
Right.
So I'm still pricing it based on fair market value on what it's actually really worth, and not pricing it on those escalations that are just crazy like that. So that I think is important. And when you do that, like I did last weekend, the open house was busy both days, and we had multiple offers, and, you know, but some were still only they even knew it was highest and best, and they still only wrote at asking price. Mm-hmm. And, you know, but there were two that really stood out. And the one, of course, the one that we accepted with an appraisal guarantee. So I would just caution anybody who's selling their house, whether you're a senior, whether you're a second time ready to move, is to just get your home in move in ready condition as much as you can.
That means take things out of it.
Which is always more difficult with the seniors, because we've lived in our home for multiple years, and it's almost overwhelming to think about moving. I'm in that same position. I've been in my house 28 years. Mm-hmm. So when I'm thinking about downsizing, it's like sometimes I walk in rooms and go, never mind.
Nope.
Not today.
That's why we're here to help,
That's
right?
why
we'll
you're
help
here
you
to help.
downsize.
Right.
The senior movers will help you downsize. But it's true. Even like, we've only been in our house for 7 years, and I think just getting rid of junk, I'm like, the bigger house you get, the more you fill it with crap you don't need.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And then even when you kind of go through and clean things out, and then a couple of years later, there's still more accumulation. But and I think with the senior market, it's different though. They have a lifetime. We have a lifetime of memories, and it's an emotion.
It sure is.
You know, I just sold a house to first time buyers this weekend, and the seller, you know, I think she picked our offer because of the emotion of the house, and she wanted someone who was going to care for it and take care of it. And that was hard for her. And according to her agent, it took a year and a half for her to make that decision to really get to market and then finally have the estate sale. And it was cute. I found something there today when I was there for the inspection, and it was a letter that she had typed up to all the neighbors, which I thought was so cute. I took a picture of it to show to my buyers because I thought, what a great neighborhood to move into, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like, we're having your private estate sale with 38 years worth of tools, everything else. Her husband had passed away. And come on over, refreshments will be served. Like, what a great community, right? To be able to move into.
So help her say goodbye to her, friends and neighbors that she's met. That was, I thought, a really smart idea to kind of invite the people that you've been living around for these years to come over and have a look privately. And have refreshments. Like, you never see that at Let's have a party and you can buy my stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So Leslie, you're on the flip side. So you help with closing. So you don't get to see all of that.
Not at all, but I get to hear about it. It is really adorable when they talk about moving out of their homes. And I don't hear I had to get rid of my stuff. What I hear is I need to not accumulate as much anymore. I was just actually closing an estate plan yesterday, and they said that they're not staying in this house. They've been there 5 years. They don't like it. It's not particularly what they want. And they over decorated for the amount of time they're going to stay. And now they're learning. They said the next time they're not going to put as many things in the next time. And, but they want a forever home. And I thought it was a good home. It's all one level, but it was not what they like. So I do get to hear about people wanting to move, or they just have, and they're excited. Usually when I get to them, they're excited to be moving into their new home and just how they're going to decorate it, and who's going to get this room, and did the kids argue over. And it's fun when we have the new empty nesters moving to a new home. Because they're like, I am not giving my son a bedroom. That's going to be my craft room, or the garage is going to be all mine now, or, it's really, everybody's different. It's just really fun to hear all the different things.
Kids are out, no more.
That's right. There will be a guest room. You will share the bunk beds.
Oh my gosh. Or sometimes probably on the flip side too, it's like the grandkids. Kids are gone. Grandkids are grandkids' room.
Yeah, a lot of people do set up a room just for the grandkids.
So in talking about real estate, I want to ask both of you. So during either the buying or the selling process, because you guys both help on each sides, what are some maybe like red flags that people should watch out for? Because when Leslie was here last time, she talked about like some of the things that she found that maybe should have been explained, or maybe they're asking her questions that legally she can't answer. I think too, there was a conversation brought up and people were talking about like investors buying seniors' homes. And while that's okay, they're not always getting as much as maybe they should if they find an actual buyer who's going to love it and cherish it, like who you just helped your clients. Right. So I was wondering if you guys ever come across like that, or just some things that our listeners should watch out for or just be aware of.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I would love for the listeners to be aware of, always have valid ID. Whether you're driving or not.
That way you can buy your cocktails.
You can buy your... You have to prove you're 21 times, however many. No, as a notary, I can't close a loan. I can't notarize anything if your ID is expired. Whether you're driving or not, you need to have valid identification. And I run into it all the time where the people show up to close on their home and they didn't bring their ID. Well, I can't identify you. So then that holds things up. I mean, usually they can go back home and get it.
Yeah.
But they have to have it unexpired, because in the state of Michigan, and I think I mentioned this last time, in the state of Michigan, if your ID is expired, you no longer exist. You're not really a person anymore when your ID expires, which obviously you are, but it has to be up to date. So please make sure your ID is up to date. If you're not driving anymore, you change it to an identification card instead of a driver's license. It's pretty simple. It doesn't cost any more. It doesn't cost any less, but it doesn't cost any more. So if you're taking care of your parents, make sure that happens. If it's yours, make sure it happens. And then the other thing that I run into is just like, and I can't get a straight answer out of this, but maybe you can answer me. Whose job is it to explain the tax change, property tax change to the first-time home buyer?
Yeah, that's a great question. But to me, it's me as their representative. If I'm representing them, even as a buyer, as their buyer's agent, that's why they're hiring me.
Yeah.
Because those are the things that I want to explain. Like, for instance, the home I sold to those first-time buyers, the woman has been there for 38 years. So that was something I pointed out to them. It's like, okay, this is the SEV, which is the value that they say your house is worth, which is usually less now anyway than market price. But then there's also the taxable value on there. Okay. The taxable value is the one that gets capped every year. So for instance, she's lived there for 38 years. Her taxes have only gone up at the max like 1.5% a year on that value. So when you sell, let's say she probably paid maybe $100,000 for that house, if even that. Now it's $250,000. Yeah. Your tax base is that taxable value becomes uncapped. And then, so what I do is I talk to my buyers and say, this is what this is. This is how we pay taxes in advance in Michigan. At closing, you will be repaying and reimbursing the sellers for the taxes they've already paid forward.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So that's on the closing statement that it's a credit to them and a debit to you because you have to pay them back for prorated out for the days left. And then you will get a new tax bill when the bills come out in December, after December 1st and after July 1st. Yeah. And those taxes are usually reassessed in the fall every year from every municipality and county. And then you will receive a new tax bill. But I do have a great calculation program that I can plug in what the current SEV is, figure out like 50% of what they're paying and for their house. Let's say it's, $200,000. I can put in $100,000. That's going to be your new tax base. So this is what the taxes will be. But I do hear people all the time whose agents, whose realtors have not explained to them about the taxes and they're shocked.
Yeah.
And especially on like new construction because they're being taxed on vacant land.
Yes.
And then they're building, let's say a $500,000 house or more. Yeah. And then they get this whopping tax bill and it really does make a difference. So
that's the difference between an agent and a full service agent. So I personally thank you for that.
No,
because that does make such a difference.
So you run into that in closing
way too many times. And here's what happens. I get yelled at because nobody explained it. And I will, if I'm in a title office,
I'm not even a part of any of this.
I just take the brunt. I brush it off when I leave. I know it's not my fault, but I also have been wondering whose job that is because it's not happening. And if I'm sitting with a first time home buyer, it's a different presentation.
For sure.
Because if you've bought and sold homes, you know what a mortgage is, you know what a note. The mortgage is 17 pages long and they're not going to read every word unless they're a new home buyer. They're going to want to know what they're signing. Right. So you have to treat them with a little more kid gloves, right? So if I know that they are a first time home buyer and they're taking, I take more care, make sure to point out the things that are obvious to other people. And if the agent is sitting there or the title or whomever, and we get to that, the escrow page, and I will make sure, I will ask, did you explain the tax base? And too many times I get agents who go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how to do that.
Wow.
And it scares me because these people are getting paid to do a job just like you do, but they're not doing the full job. Right. And then the client expects me to know, well, as a notary, I can't explain that to them. It is the illegal practice of law. And I can't do that. So I have to put you on the spot. Sorry. So know your stuff, make sure it's full service.
And I agree. I always have these conversations in my office with my colleagues. It's like, okay, do your job. Not my colleagues, but it's like
you work with a lot of others.
I work with a lot of others, and a lot of people
agents.
got into real estate in the last few years because business has been so great. COVID, a lot of people weren't going in the office and that kind of thing, or they didn't want to be working in the service industry or whatever anymore in restaurants. And so they went and got their license and, most of them don't really know what they're doing. So to me, when the market slows down, like it kind of has, there's not as many out there with interest rates going up, but it's like a lot of the agents had to go back to work somewhere else because they couldn't make a living on it. Number one, but mostly because they were never really professional in the way that they handle things.
Yeah.
And my business is built on referrals. I mean, that's how I've always built my business. I always just tell people, my goal is to give you 5-star service to where you refer me out to at least 3 people in the next year that, I can also help to buy and sell their home. Right. One thing I want to remind seniors of, because sometimes when you've been in your home for so long, and especially if you're buying a new home, you want to remember after you close on your home to make sure you turn in that Homestead Exemption form again, because you probably haven't thought about it for all these years. It's just something that you did when you bought your house 30 years ago and never gave it any thought. But I always remind people, and sometimes I will take it to the municipality. And I'm always, here's a copy of it. Here's the original. Turn in the original. Have them date stamp the copy for your files. So if they ever come back and say, I never got your Homestead Exemption form and your taxes are now 30% higher, you have a copy of that as your receipt, and showing that you turned it in.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, a good point on that too is to know how that's filed. If one of the couple, the husband or wife, passes away, and it's not filed for both of them to have the exemption, and it's under the wife's name, because not all houses have both names on it.
That's true.
And the wife passes away, now it goes to the husband. That has to be filed again, because that can be skipped over for years.
That is such a good point. And and I do run into that because since I work with a lot of seniors, and like the one I'm just sold this past weekend, his wife passed away in the last year, but it is in both of their names. But I that's one thing I check is to see if it's in his name or not.
You got to make sure of that. I have a fun little trick that I do. Do you want to know how I do it when I get that form?
Yeah,
because you have to take it. So give me your piece of paper. I want to show you. So I'm going to help all the notaries out there. So I will put it like this, offset it, and so the stamp goes here. So they take both copies in, the original and the copy. Both copies get stamped, and everybody gets one.
Yeah,
that's
great trick.
It's just, and then it says you have 45 days to file it, and I tell them you have 45 days, but if you wait 45 days, you're not going to do it. So 4 to 5 days. 4 to 5 days.
Yeah,
and then they go and they're like, we're going to do it right now.
You just forget.
That's what I always do too. It's like if they're open, go now or at least in the next week.
Take care of it. Yeah.
And things start piling up, and the next thing you know, it is 45 days.
Right. But it's easy for them to find when it's folded on top of all their flat papers. So
I thought it was interesting that Leslie brought up like the taxes and stuff, because I was telling her when we bought our house, the HOA approved to do the roads. And it was like the first summer that we were moving in after we had bought it in fall and they were starting the summer, but they did not tell us that. And so we got that tax bill and it was like an extra $1,000 for 10 years. And James and I were like, oh my God, well, we're halfway through now, or no, maybe 3 years left. So we're almost there, but so that'll be nice. But I was like, damn, you're right. That happened.
Crazy. That's $100 a month.
That person might not have even known that. That agent probably didn't even know that the HOA had plan to approve that and get it started.
So there is a form in the closing package. There is a, what do they call that? An addendum. There's an HOA addendum in there.
Maybe I'll go through that
giant thing. This is where people just sign and they don't read. And that's part of it.
And that's why the title companies always contact the HOAs, and they do see if there's assessments that are there, then they'll know about them. If they didn't know about them, then it's different. But I even sold a place last year that had a deck assessment. It was a condo, and they were redoing all the decks, and it was like $5,800. Well, we had the seller pay that prior to closing. But then what happened is after closing, the HOA reassessed everything because the first company that they had contracted with, they decided they didn't want to use. Well, the next one was another $1,800 per person. Yeah. So, my buyers did have to pay another $1,800 for the deck. 18
over 58.
Well, yeah,
honestly. Yeah. But sometimes if you're not budgeting for that and you're surprised, and the cost of lumber, that's why. Shoot, our deck needs to be redone. I'm like, this year we'll do it. It's a little better.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
So I love these conversations. I think they bring so much up. I think it's good for the listeners to hear. I think it's really cool to hear that your different perspectives on the different sides of the court, if you will. I know you mentioned too, like the difference of approaching like senior versus like a younger family and how much more education, like you touched on that too, because as a first time home buyer, there's so much that you don't know.
Yep.
That I think it's really cool that you both take your time to really apply that education and make sure that everybody really understands what's going on. Cause it's such a big deal in people's lives. So I think that's really cool. What are some other strategies that you guys use with your clients, whether the seniors or not, to try to like really make that process smooth? Or some things that maybe go under the radar that you don't notice until the last minute? Because I know we talked about like some red flag things, but like what are some other things that might pop up that like slows down that process? No, you mentioned the ID.
So you probably run into this too on trusts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we always make sure that we have that updated. I think it has to be updated within the last 6 months prior to closing. So that's something to know about, that if your house is in a trust, that needs to be updated before you sell. And that gets sent into, so you might have to contact your attorney who you got the trust through and get that updated. And if not, that could slow things down. But that's my job again as their representative.
Ask those questions.
Those are the things that I know through experience
especially for seniors.
Yes.
Maybe not so much the younger, but
You'd be surprised.
our house isn't a trust.
Yeah. I close trust packages for all ages. There's
It's so
lot of
important. You
reasons for
have
it.
to protect, especially if you I just thought like my kids, right? If something happens to me, whoop, there it is going down the street, like, and James is with me. I don't want them to end up whatever.
Yeah.
We've been on the other side of that with, people in our family and things like that.
And if people don't want to have a trust, there's other ways to get around not having to go to probate.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but that's one thing that could really slow down the closing, is if that's not updated and then you're trying to scramble on that, or getting like the power of attorney, making sure that you have the original for that needs to be sent in after closing and recorded. I don't know what you can add to that.
on the other side of it.
Probably a lot.
She probably has all the really fun things that I never come across.
Good stories that are like sad, but
fun.
also like sad that it happens, right?
So
like it's good tea, but
it is good tea. So if your home is in a trust and you're signing as the trustee, title makes the decision if you're signing just your name or if you're signing your name plus as trustee for the whatever the name of the trust is.
Oh my gosh.
And then
how
if
many
you-
times?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then if you add a power of attorney on top of that, you're signing your name as trustee for whatever. And then you're signing their name, your name as trustee for whatever it is, as power of attorney.
Can I get a stamp?
For the trust for this?
Nope.
No, it has to be handwritten.
Only Leslie gets
the
a
whole
stamp.
time.
Yeah.
I get the stamp. So the fun thing, the worst thing actually has only happened one time, thank goodness, but it was 14 times in the package.
Right.
Where the signer was mentally okay, but physically he couldn't sign.
Sure.
He knew exactly what he was doing, but he couldn't sign. But as a notary, like I've told you before, I can sign for them. So I had to sign for him, and then there's verbiage that has to go on there if I'm signing for him. So I sign. So they have to make a mark, and then I sign their name, and then I have to write signed pursuant to Article 33 of the Michigan Law of Notarial Acts every single time. I now have a stamp that says that because that I can stamp.
Oh,
I have a stamp now.
Well,
After
honestly,
that 14th time, I was like, go home, create a stamp. We're getting this. I'm not doing this every time.
No.
And I've used it a lot because I do have a lot of elderly clients. And they are very grateful to not have to figure out how to sign when they can't.
yeah, that's a huge
physically
stressor.
can't.
And lots of anxiety surrounding that.
Yeah, but they also have to give me permission to do it. So,
of course.
When they go to write and they can't, I do offer it and say, I do need you to, verbalize or write down or somehow indicate to me. Like there was one guy who he had brain tumors and he could communicate with a thumb.
Yeah.
So he went like this and like this and like this. And this was, I don't understand it. And it was either yes or no. And there were a whole bunch of questions I asked to make sure he had full capacity. But he did, and he was grateful that he only had to put an X on the page. And I think he put a T, and then he laughed because he was being obstinate. Didn't do an X.
Yeah. And to your point on making it, go more smoothly, I mean, I always start with a consult on everything, whether it's a buyer or a seller, and just sit down. And that's when I'm asking the questions. Is this in a trust? And I'm looking on public record and I'm going through and I'm looking for assessments on the house. I'm looking to see what, does it need a death certificate if you've had a spouse that died that needs to be presented. And also the original needs to be brought. So that can also be recorded. That will be sent back to them after the county has recorded it. Yeah. So those are the things that I'm sitting down, talking to them about and making sure that we've got all our ducks in a row, as I say, so that when we get to having an offer, I've got title in there. I've got them looking at everything. We're good to go. And, the closings run smoothly.
I would say especially if that's a document that they've lost, either they're trying to search for it, which can take weeks, or trying to get a new one. Like, you know how slow it is to get.
Usually you get 6 to 10 copies or originals when you're ordering them. Honestly, I just closed one like 3 weeks ago and his wife passed like 4 years ago, but he was like, I've got like 6 copies. You can have them. Like,
one is good.
Yeah, send me a picture now, because he was out of state. He lives in Florida now, but his home was here in Michigan. But I'm like, send me a picture over your phone. I'll bring it to title, and they at least know that you've got it. But you have to have the original at closing, or because they need to send that in. You'll get it back after. So it does work out, but it's just a matter of that consult, which
it's so
make
important.
sure everything's spelled out. They know what's going on. We know what's going on. I know what needs to be done, and we get to the closing table without a problem.
I think that's a testament to what the audience needs to know. And you touched on it a little bit earlier, but like making sure that you're getting with somebody who is going to answer all of those questions and not just brush them off too. And I loved it earlier when you first got here. You're like, I take care of something real quick, but I'm not going to text. I'm going to call. And I think that's amazing, because I think it's sort of like in lost art. I hate to even say that, but it kind of is, because everyone's like, oh, I'll just send a text. But if you need an answer right now, like chatting sometimes over text, it takes so long. Like they don't always know like how you're saying it, and just a call is just so much better. And we talked about that a little bit the last time we were here, especially with someone who's a little older and selling their house. Not everybody wants to deal with text or the back and forth emails. Like, this is what it is. This what needs to happen. This what needs to do. And you can get an answer right away.
Yeah. I had a call the other day from someone who found me on the Nextdoor app and Google reviews. And so I have an appointment Friday. But, my question to her at the end was, how do you like to communicate? Do you text?
Yes.
Do you prefer email, phone calls? And she's like, no, I do text. So that's fine, but that's great. I need to know that. So that is always a question these days. Yeah.
Being flexible too, because it might not be your preferred form of communication, but you've got to go with what the customer wants.
Right. Exactly. And if they're not tech savvy, or they don't do email, or everything's electronic signatures in the real estate world these days. And even the closings are, they're starting those again. I know they had them for a while and then
hybrids.
They stopped. Yeah. But everything's electronic. But, if they don't have computers, I will go to their home. I mean, during COVID, I sat out, and our client was 92 years old, and we sat on the front lawn and the lawn chair and signed because he doesn't do electronic signatures. We did his list. I was listing a couple investment properties that he had. And, so that's what we did. We sat out. It was drizzling, but it was fine. But whatever works. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's what he needed. He didn't do computers. He didn't do electronic signatures. And so it's like, well, it's COVID, so we're going to sit outside. Yeah. So
looking back now, you probably would have been okay to be inside. Just saying, but
yeah, I know.
But you didn't know. We didn't know.
There.
We didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, man. But whatever works is what we're going to do.
What a crazy time.
Right.
I know, right? When you think about that. Yeah.
I love it now though, because people are like, they're getting ready. Like you both have said, like how busy you are, like how many different places you're going in. And I don't think the seniors are afraid, because we just went to a senior expo that had 450 seniors at it.
All right.
I mean, they were partying.
Yeah.
Well, and if people are, you see them, they're still out with masks, if
they were a little,
Yep. I do see a fair share of people in masks. I do have some people who ask me to put a mask on. I always have a mask with me. But I go into a lot of senior living facilities, and most of them do not require a mask anymore. If they do, I comply. That's fine. It's what they need. But, everybody has a need. I can adapt to whatever. Yeah.
We had a chef come on, I was telling you guys earlier, and he said that their community just got rid of masks like that week. And he was like, all of the residents kept saying, is that what you look like? That's what you look like? And he's like, I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing. That's not what I thought you looked like.
Oh,
like,
that's hysterical.
Oh my gosh.
It's good or bad. He's like, this is it. This is what you get.
Oh, wow.
Food tastes the same. So cute. All right. I want to give each of you an opportunity really quickly just to talk a little bit about yourselves, a little bit about your services. Do you guys want to rock, paper, scissors? Who goes first?
Leslie,
I'm
go
just
first.
kidding.
I'll go first. Thank you, Marian. All right. I am Leslie Hocker with Mobile Notary of Macomb. I have a team of notaries all over the state of Michigan ready when you need a notary. So you do not have to go to the bank. They're not going to do it all for you. Don't have to go to the UPS office. You might need a notary at night. You might not be able to leave your home. And I guarantee you, your grandma will appreciate not having to leave her house to go get something notarized. We go to you at your convenience. So if you call me and I can't be there, I'll give you two choices. You can wait for me, or I can send somebody when it's ready for you, whichever you choose. And whichever I choose, I've got a whole team of notaries who I know do things properly. I know that when they notarize for you, it's going to hold up in court. They're not going to overcharge you because there are state fees that are laws. We can only charge $10 per notarization plus a travel fee that you agree to prior. There's no other fees that are allowed for intangible. You cannot charge if somebody is inconvenienced for this. You can't charge an administration fee. You can't charge an after hours fees. That's illegal. Charge $10 per notarization plus a travel fee. And I make sure that my notaries do that. We have a network. We work together twice a week. We are always up on the law. We are making things happen, and we're there for you. So, Mobile Notary of Macomb.
I love that you brought up the thing, because during her episode we were talking a lot about like how some were charging like $300.
Oh my gosh!
And
for one signature.
Yeah, one of the girls in the office had that, and she was like, "Who is it?" I'm like, I can't remember now, but she was like, "That is way out of line," and I had no idea. I think a lot of people don't know either. So I love that little piece of education.
Yeah. There's too many people being taken advantage of, and it's sad. It's really just sad that people don't know. And I'm trying to get the word out there that there is a state allowed fee for a notarization. And I just told you what it is. So back up and listen again.
I'll say we'll put the link into, because we found we found that one site that it was like, no matter what state you're from, even if you're not from Michigan, there still is a legal limit on what you're allowed to charge. And so we posted that with your episode.
Yeah, most have it. And if you go to my website, the first thing you see after yours truly is $10. Read that article. It tells you it's $10 per notarization. Yeah. And I give people a break. So I had a lady contact me through my Google page who wanted to be only contact through email, which was great. Takes a little longer, but whatever. We worked it out. But she needed something like 16 signatures. Oh, yeah. I did not charge her full price. Okay. That's just it. I mean, I sat there, I got to learn about them. We all signed. We had a little signing party because she had to sign in front of me. We got it all done. I did not charge her $160 plus a travel fee. That to me was unfair. I was there for like 35 minutes. Yeah. So I gave her quite a break, and she was very grateful for that. I would rather have return clients than a whole bunch of money one time.
Oh, yes.
Now she'll refer me
a few times because it's better off.
Absolutely.
That's all great news. That's great for me to know as a realtor, because I have people, like I mentioned earlier, in other states that need notaries. Yep. So
we could do that online, or I can send somebody to them.
Now, let me ask you this question. If they're there and you're here, which state fee do you charge?
So doing it online, you have to use an approved platform. Yes. So first of all, as a notary, you have to have a special additional commission to be RON certified, remote online notarization certified. Okay. You can't just do it because you're a notary.
Because you feel like it.
Right. You have to do it on a platform.
Yes.
And I use Cyberize It, and I have my own landing page, and I can send that to you so you can link it if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And so you go online and you choose how many notarizations you need, how many witnesses. So for the lady that I just spoke of, I charged her $135 total. It would have been like $205.
More because you're traveling fee and stuff like that.
So I went online. I know that like one notarization is $35.95 or something like that. So it's break even at that point. But she needed 16. It would have been $300 and some dollars. And so she had said, we can do this online. And I said, okay, this is what it's going to cost you online. She goes, well, it makes sense to do it in person. And it really wasn't that far from me. It was just the convenience for her. Would have been easier just to go online and do it. But I don't mind going to people's homes. I like seeing people's homes. I like meeting them in their own environment. They're more comfortable signing things at home than even they are online. So if they can, especially estate plans, closing those at home or selling a house that they've loved for so many years, it does make a difference to be in a comfortable environment like your own home to do those. So I just, I make it as comfortable as possible. So, but I have met people in fire department parking lot at the end of my driveway, at a restaurant
these
parking lot.
backdoor deals that sound a little sketchy. Don't worry, guys. We're just doing some legal documents
Just
here.
open the back of my car and do it under the rain. Yeah, whatever it takes.
Boy.
We're mobile. We go to you. However you need it.
All
That's
right.
great. Yeah.
Do you want a chance to talk about Dobi?
Yeah,
Please do.
sure. Yeah. So if you are thinking about selling your home, your longtime family home, don't get overwhelmed like I do. Call senior moving
She'll
companies.
help you open that door.
No, but let's talk, we can talk about, like I said, I do consults. We can sit down and talk and figure out a timeline for you. And I know we talked about this in my previous podcast, are the vendors, which is one of the most important things, to have trusted vendors like the senior companies here that have the resources for you. Mm-hmm. But I also have, carpenters and general contractors. If there's anything that we decide we might want to do, painters, whatever, locksmiths, I have a full list of trusted vendors that we can send to you to help out, but we'll figure all that out. Whether or not to sell your home vacant or whether to sell it while you're there. One of the things I still do to this day is I don't do one-off showings if the people don't want to be inconvenienced. Like my client from last weekend, I did his open house for 2 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday. He's working at home. He didn't want to be inconvenienced. So guess what? We won't do showings during the week. Whoever wants to see your house has to come through this period.
Yeah.
And like I said, we got over asking and appraisal guaranteed. So it works, right? So we can structure anything for your needs, which is important. So
it's absolutely
important.
And
let's just have a conversation about how we can work together and what's important to you and how I can structure that. And then also we can come to you, just like Leslie, for closing. If you if you want to have it done at home, we will send the notary over there and with all the closing documents and the closer, and you don't have to be inconvenienced that way or out of state. So we do whatever works for our clients. So
I would encourage the seniors to call you sooner rather than later too, because you might be in the position to where you're just considering it, but getting that information is going to help you feel more comfortable to make those decisions. You don't have to contact her when you're thinking about moving in 6 months. Do it in a year.
Yeah. And
because she can help you figure out what that plan is going to be. You might do some things and you might not choose to do anything to your home, and you might still be able to get a good price to help you with that, retirement nest egg or whatever you're looking for.
Thing. Yeah. And most people don't want to do a lot. So, but let's talk about that and figure it out. Yeah, we can figure that out. And that's the one thing I don't want people to be taken advantage of either by selling your home as is, when we know that we might be able to get more cash out. And I can figure that out too, and figure out if it was done and if we did these things, how much more cash you might be able to put in your pocket. So that's all. Most people will contact me at least 6 months when they've been in a home for a long time and they're just trying to decide what they want to do. Route. It's usually at least a year, because it's like, okay, what do you need to do? What do you want to do? Let's figure this out. And maybe there's nothing that we decide that you want to do. And
having
that's
a party
okay too.
And selling your stuff at the same time is a great idea.
Isn't it great?
I need to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
We're all going to do that now.
I know.
Honestly,
I've been trying to offload all my old stuff on Jonathan.
Marian, you touched on all the things that people wonder about, and I appreciate that, because when I haven't sold a home in a long time, but I never heard those things. But those are things that were always questions in my mind. And if that's how you treat your clients, that is awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I work hard to take care of them. And really, it is all about service to my clients. Yeah. So I always try to come from a place of service, as I'm sure you do. It's like, that's why you gave her a break on her price. It's like, I'm not going to be ridiculous in this. Right. And I can make more money off her, but I'm not going to, right? It's just a matter of giving and being of service. Absolutely. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh, I wish everybody felt like that, 'cause especially with the population that we all are trying to help, right? Usually it's the opposite. So I love this good feeling. If you guys have any questions about anything that we talked about today, whether that is notarization or you have real estate needs, I encourage you to visit theseniornetwork.com. Both of these lovely women are featured on theseniornetwork.com. You can reach Marian at 248-761-4110. You can reach Leslie at 810-334-1961. You can contact me at kl@theseniormovers.com or at 586-204-8500. Remember, visit our YouTube channel. You can find us on Instagram at @Viso. You can like the Senior Movers on Facebook. Both of these women have Facebooks. I encourage you to search them out. They both post really interesting things, helpful tips and tricks regarding both of their services. And we'll see you next time on the Senior Podcast Show. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Yeah, that was fun.